When a love is so strong it can't be contained, sometimes it's better to hide it from view, to keep it from those closest to you, to walk the line of a double life. But what happens when that line starts to fade? When your two worlds crash into one another? When that love you fought so hard to keep secret sneaks up from behind and swallows you whole? July 12th, 2017, 5:30 a.m. It's daybreak in Vista, California, about 40 miles northeast of San Diego.
The city of Vista has both a rural area to it as well as a city area to it. It's a nice location. It has a lot of open space.
A construction worker is driving to his latest job site, using one of Vista's desolate roads.
This is an area where there really are not a lot of people. It's just a dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
The worker spots something a few feet from the road.
He saw what appeared to be a man slumped over with no shirt on. He honked at him. He wasn't moving. He got no response from him.
As he got a little bit closer, he saw the blood was dripping down his chest. He realized this guy might actually be dead, and so he called 911.
Within minutes, emergency responders arrived to assess the victim.
Patrol deputy arrived, and he immediately noticed there was blood all over his chest and his face.
There were 3 gunshot wounds. One was to his chest, the other was to his thigh, and the final one was to the back of his head.
As police dive into the investigation, they'll soon discover a grisly plot, with a love-struck teenager at the center of it all. 18-year-old cheerleader Shafaa Chevis was living the high school dream.
Shafaa was very active in high school. She was in a number of activities. She's well liked by her friends and peers.
Everyone in the community really just admired her.
With her senior year coming to a close, Shafaa had big plans for the future.
Shafaa was on the honor roll and had gotten into college. She was looking into being a dentist.
She had college award letters. She had a very bright future.
From the outside, Shafaa's life seemed perfect. But on the inside, Shafaa felt a bit lonely.
All her friends are partnering up, and there's that sense of who's going to be my guy.
She thought, I know that I've got this future, I've worked all hard for this, but there's this piece that's missing.
In December of 2016, Shafaa found what she was looking for. When she reconnected with an old friend, 20-year-old Shirelle Wesley.
She knew him from being friends with her brother and coming over to the house. Shafaa, from the time she was 4th or 5th grade, put him up on a pedestal. So he's up there and I'm down here. I'm this bookworm, he's this superstar.
Shirelle was a hip-hop dancer and aspiring rapper, making a splash in the local music scene.
He was that kind of guy that everybody wanted to be around, wore the good clothing and had videos, but he made some bad choices.
Shirelle had just been released from prison and was back in town.
Shirelle had previously been arrested for armed robbery of a gun shop.
They took over the store, they assaulted the manager. Based on that incident, Shirel was sentenced to 2 years in state prison.
Even though Shafa's brother had experienced a falling out with Shirel, Shafa continued to hold a soft spot for him.
They were complete polar opposites. Shafa kind of saw that bad boy attitude and kind of was attracted to that.
Shafa knew her family wouldn't approve, but she couldn't deny the spark she felt.
They thought he was bad news. Shafa's brother didn't want anything to do with him at that point. He was not welcome anymore.
In an effort to hide their relationship from Shafa's parents, Shafa and Shirel began hanging out in secret.
Shafa spent every day with him. She really hit it off with him, and she had to keep it a secret.
The chemistry between the two was magnetic.
Shafa was infatuated with this older guy and thought that she had found this excitement and romance that she was looking for.
Her life no longer was school, friends, family. It was Shirel, Shirel, Shirel.
She had fallen for him. She was in love with him, and she wanted to be with him at any cost.
But little did she know the world of trouble her lifelong crush would soon get her in. July 12, 2017. San Diego detectives have just responded to a gunshot victim found dead about 40 miles outside the city.
Police were on the scene in this remote area where they had found a body with 3 gunshot wounds.
It did not appear to be a crime of passion. This more appeared to be some type of planned event.
Investigators searched through the victim's pockets for identifying information.
Detectives pull out his wallet, and they found his identification.
The victim is 21-year-old D'Angelo Sharon. In addition to his ID, detectives also find a receipt in the victim's wallet.
The receipt was from a liquor store that was about an hour and a half away from the crime scene near downtown San Diego, where he had made a transaction about 12:30 in the morning.
So now we're looking at a small window which puts our victim in San Diego 4 hours ago.
Detectives survey the scene for additional evidence. They spot 2 .40 caliber shell casings less than 10 feet from the body and a trail of blood drops.
There was also a fingernail that was broken off, laying in the middle of the roadway, right amongst the blood droplets.
It was a woman's type fingernail, burgundy red, acrylic.
It seems a woman is connected to D'Angelo's death. But how? Detectives would soon uncover a popular cheerleader had gotten in too deep with her man, and all hell had broke loose.
The dream she thought she was going to have was going to become a nightmare.
"18-year-old Shafa Chevis had fallen head over heels for 20-year-old Shirel Wesley.
Shafa and Shirel seemed to hit it off with a mutual infatuation for each other.
The cheerleader was dating Shirel behind her family's back.
I noticed that Shafa was acting differently and that she would not confide in me. I had no clue she was in a relationship.
Having that double life was the road for trouble for Shafa.
July 12, 2017. Police have identified murder victim 21-year-old D'Angelo Sharon, who was found shot to death on a remote roadside in Vista, California.
Now that the detectives knew who D'Angelo Sharon was, the next step was to contact his family.
Investigators strike out on finding D'Angelo's next of kin, but they do find a curious association. D'Angelo's last known address is also the family home of recent prison parolee Shirell Wesley.
Shirell actually had a violent history. He had been prosecuted for an armed gun store robbery.
With Shirell's history and connection to the victim, detectives hope he can offer some clues as to who killed D'Angelo. Later that day, they pay a visit to the Wesley residence. Shirell isn't home, but detectives notify Mr. and Mrs. Wesley of D'Angelo's death.
They were devastated to hear the news. The Wesley family had revealed to the detectives that D'Angelo was basically like a family member and the best friend of their son, Shirell.
The Wesley family allowed D'Angelo to stay there. D'Angelo's home life wasn't exactly the greatest.
Then, the Wesleys tell detectives about a disturbing incident that happened earlier that same day.
Shirell had told them around 7 a.m. when he returned to the house that he believed that D'Angelo had been kidnapped and was possibly murdered by either cartel or Mexican mafia people.
The Wesleys say they had been hoping D'Angelo would turn up unharmed, but feared the worst.
They said that they had been planning on contacting the police themselves.
Detectives aren't so sure Shirell was telling his parents the truth.
D'Angelo was not associating with gang members in Vista. But the family absolutely believed what Shirell had said, that it had to be that D'Angelo got into some problems on his own and that it couldn't have been Shirell. Shirell and D'Angelo were the best of friends. They were brothers.
Detectives ask Mr. and Mrs. Wesley if they know where Shirell is now.
They had no idea where he was at. They hadn't heard from him since earlier that morning.
It was clear Shirell's family didn't know anything about what D'Angelo and Shirell possibly could have been doing.
Detectives thank the Wesleys for their time and put out an APB for Shirell.
They think he's hiding something.
It seems strange that he disappeared after giving this odd story about the cartel and didn't even contact law enforcement.
As police fan out in search of Shirell, detectives pursue the next lead, the liquor store receipt.
The receipt from the liquor store was dated July 12th at about 30 minutes after midnight.
When detectives arrive at the store, they ask the manager to view the surveillance footage from the night before.
Around midnight, it shows a white Toyota pull up to the side of the liquor store. Our victim, D'Angelo, walking into the store with another male.
I noticed that he had tattoos on his neck, tattoos on his face, similar hair to Shirell Wesley.
The men approached the front cashier and examined the alcohol display. After a few minutes, the second man detectives believe to be Shirell leaves the store and returns to the car.
The detectives see the driver of the vehicle as a black female, and she doesn't get out of the vehicle, she's just in the front seat. We have a very good suspicion that that's going to be her fingernail that's at the crime scene.
As Shirell and the woman wait for D'Angelo, things get a little hot and heavy.
They appeared to start making out. Became very intimate while sitting there in the car, waiting for D'Angelo to purchase the alcohol.
Minutes later, D'Angelo returns to the car with a bag of liquor, and the trio drives away.
D'Angelo, he's found dead on the side of the road, not too long after he had been seen with Shirell.
Detectives are sure Shirell and his lady friend are both connected to the murder. But how do they find them? Luckily, The surveillance video gives them a great lead.
The license plate is extremely clear because of the new type of security cameras. We need to get in contact with the register owner.
Back at the station, detectives run a quick search on the license plate.
The license plate comes back to the register owner's address, Shafa Chavez.
Shafa has no criminal record and seems like a model citizen.
She was that all-American girl that you'd want to have living next door.
So how did this girl next door end up connected to a vicious murder? And why?
Her heart was blinded. She didn't know better. And that's what made it a disaster.
July 2017. San Diego police are investigating the murder of 21-year-old D'Angelo Sharon. They need to speak to his best friend, Shirelle Wesley, and Shirelle's girlfriend, Shafa Chavez, after surveillance footage shows the couple with D'Angelo hours before his death.
At this point, we had a convicted felon with D'Angelo and this girl who seemed to have a very different background in life. It was a real mystery to the detectives why she was with them.
The surveillance video establishes probable cause and allows detectives to obtain a search warrant of the teen's car. Just after 9 p.m. on July 17th, police head to Shafa's family home.
They caught Shafa with cleaning supplies walking out to her white car.
This looks very, very suspicious. It's like she's trying to clean up evidence of what had happened in this car.
When police cuff the 18-year-old, they notice she's missing a red fingernail.
We need to match the broken fingernail at the scene with the broken fingernail that she has on her left hand.
The commotion sends Shafa into a panic.
She was a cheerleader, honor student. She's going to be emotionally very agitated because this is not her world. She never dealt with the police.
Shafa sort of had a defeated slump about her when she realized they had a warrant and that they were going to get into the trunk of that car.
Shafa's parents come outside to see what's going on, and they're stunned by the sight.
It just was disbelief, still so much disbelief.
Shafa and her family can only watch as investigators search every inch of her car.
They found a pair of sweatpants, socks, and shoes. All of them had what appeared to be dried blood on them.
Immediately, you could tell they were the same items from the video that Shirelle Wesley was wearing the night before.
Police also recover a blue sweatshirt that matches the one D'Angelo had on in the liquor store surveillance video.
D'Angelo's dead body was found shirtless.
After searching Shafa's vehicle, investigators proceed inside the family home. Inside the teen's bedroom, they hit pay dirt.
We located a black backpack. Inside that was a high-point .40 caliber handgun.
This was the same caliber of handgun that matched the .40 caliber casings at the crime scene.
They also find an open package of alcohol swabs next to the weapon.
It had appeared that someone had been using them in order to try to wipe down the gun.
After the evidence is collected, Shafa's parents can only look on in shock as their perfect daughter is taken into custody.
When the police arrived at the house, I figured if it was anything, it was something minor. But when she told me it was for murder, it was mind-blowing. Could not believe that.
On the north side of town, officers staking out the Wesley family home catch a lucky break.
They do see an individual that matches the description of Shirelle, and it is in fact Shirelle.
Police move in. But it seems Shirel is not going down without a fight.
He realized that they were hot on his trail and tried to run.
I pulled my gun, I pointed at his chest. I said, "Sheriff's Department, get on the ground, get on the ground." And he immediately put his hands up and he got down on the ground, face down.
Officers arrest Shirel without further incident and confiscate his cell phone. As they're getting ready to leave, they notice something outside the neighbor's home that could produce even more evidence against Shirel.
Investigators discovered that a neighbor had a home security camera.
Back at the station with Shafa and Shirel in custody, investigators examine the footage recorded on the morning of July 12th. It shows Shafa and Shirel pull up just after 6 a.m.
Shirel exits the vehicle, and Shafa gets out of the front passenger seat.
Shirel is wearing shorts as they approach the rear door of the vehicle and stop directly in view of the camera.
Shafa and Shirel embrace, kissing passionately, like, "Hey, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be just fine."
The video provides a crucial link for investigators.
It shows that the couple is together at 6:15 in the morning.
This is just after the 911 caller reported D'Angelo's body on the roadside in Vista. The couple was clearly together during the murder. But the question is, would they stick together now?
We were wondering whether one was going to roll against the other.
When detectives sit down with Shirel, he'll make an admission they never saw coming.
She loves him and trusts him, but he's throwing the whole thing on her.
July 17th, 2017. San Diego police have just arrested Shafa Chevis and Shirel Wesley in connection with the murder of D'Angelo Sharon.
We had both of these suspects in custody, as well as a mountain of physical evidence against them.
Shafa and Shirel sit in separate but nearby holding rooms while they await questioning. Investigators have purposely placed them in close proximity.
The holding cells would be to our advantage in order to see if they would communicate with each other.
It doesn't take long for Shafa and Shirel to realize they can see each other.
The couple was trying to figure out what their story was going to be.
But how far are they willing to go to protect each other? Investigators pull Shirel in for interrogation first and ask him if he knows the victim.
Yes, I do know D'Angelo. That's my best friend.
Did you get in an argument and shoot D? Go.
No, I would never do that to my best friend.
Detectives confront Shirel with being in the same car with D'Angelo hours before his murder.
He denies that's even him in the video. The investigators noted, "You have a face tattoo of a cross on your face. This is you in the picture," and he again denied that being him.
Investigators ask Shirel about his relationship with Shafa Chevis, and his next statement is equally surprising.
You know Shafa?
Shafa, no.
You know anyone named Shafa?
Shirel denied her completely. Not just it wasn't his girlfriend, but he denied knowing Shafa even existed.
Detectives knew Shirel was lying and that he was clearly the person who was in that liquor store video.
Investigators press Shirel, detailing the mountain of evidence against him.
Detectives had Shirel's clothes with blood on them from Shafa's trunk. They had videos of Shirel with Shafa and D'Angelo.
Faced with the abundant evidence, Shirel finally relents.
He gives in and admits that Shafa is his girlfriend.
He admitted that they were all hanging out together that night, but he denied any responsibility for what happened to D'Angelo.
Shirel said he loved D'Angelo like a family member and that he would never hurt his brother.
He tells investigators that on the evening of July 12th, the three of them had driven to a remote area in Vista to hang out.
He said they had been drinking out there.
Shirel says that after a couple hours, D'Angelo got drunk and argumentative.
D'Angelo made some comment and disrespected Shirel, and Shirel challenged D'Angelo to a fight.
During their scuffle, Shirel says a gun that had been tucked into the waistband of D'Angelo's pants fell out on the ground.
They broke apart for a few seconds, and all of a sudden he heard bullets.
Shirel says he looked over and saw Shafa standing near the car, a few feet away.
He said that Shafa had pulled the trigger and killed D'Angelo. He yelled at her, "What are you doing? You just killed my best friend."
Shirel says Shafa was just trying to defend him, but he never wanted her to shoot D'Angelo.
Investigators were shocked by the fact that Shirel was throwing his teenage girlfriend under the bus.
Shirel claims he never called police because he was trying to protect Shafa, but detectives aren't buying it.
You just saw your friend get shot. You didn't go over there, render any first aid, anything. You got in the car and you drove away. And an hour and a half after, we see them on video kissing.
For detectives, Shirel's version seems as unlikely as the lies he told his family about D'Angelo being abducted by a drug cartel.
It became very apparent that he wasn't going to give a truthful statement.
D'Angelo Sharon had been shot 3 times, the final shot being an execution-style wound.
That statement that he provided was completely uncorroborated by any evidence. The trajectory of the bullets did not make any sense. That Shafa could have shot him standing near the car and hit him in an angle in the top of the head.
It seems more likely to detectives that the fatal shots had been fired by the felon rather than the high school cheerleader.
Shirel had more experience with guns, and he had a record. And if he and D'Angelo were fighting that night, he would need a better reason to want him dead.
When detectives speak with Shafa, they hope she'll reveal what really happened that fateful night, especially once they tell her about Shirel's statement.
This person that she thought loved her was all about himself.
She's been betrayed by him and is faced with this decision about, what am I going to do?
"18-year-old cheerleader Shafa Chevis has been arrested in connection to the execution-style murder of D'Angelo Sharon.
We all were in a state of shock because we had no idea that anything of this capacity could be happening to our little girl.
Shafa's boyfriend, Shirel Wesley, has just told investigators that she pulled the trigger on his best friend.
In Shafa's eyes, she's looking to Shirel to be this great protector, and he had essentially thrown her under the bus.
With Shirel's statement in tow, detectives speak with Shafa. They tell her that Shirel has pinned everything on her.
You can almost hear the heart shattering into pieces.
Distraught by Shirel's betrayal, Shafa decides to cooperate with police.
Shafa began to realize that this person that she thought was protector and loved her did not love her, that he was all about himself. So at this point, she would go into a place of, I need to survive.
Shafa explains to detectives that she has been dating Shirel behind her family's back. But after a while, she saw a side of him her family had been fearful of all along.
Shafa was definitely afraid of him. She had good reasons. He had abused her physically to the extent that she had a damaged jaw.
Arguments were happening every day. Any physical abuse, he would also blame it on her and say that, well, you got it because you should have, disrespected me this way. And she began to believe that.
Shafa tells investigators, 10 days before the murder, Shirel showed her a gun while they were together.
She asked what he's doing with the handgun, and he said to her, hey, are you down with me? Are you going to be there for me? She didn't know where was this coming from.
Shafa says she was terrified, but she agreed to ride for him.
It's just her and him, and she said, of course I'm down with you.
Shafa says that's when Shirel made a startling statement.
Shirel went on to say that he believed that D'Angelo was plotting his murder and that he was going to take out D'Angelo before D'Angelo took him out. D'Angelo had been hanging out with other individuals in different dance crews. This anger was fueled by his paranoia, so that he believed that D'Angelo was going to murder him.
Shafa basically told us that Shirel had been planning this murder.
And so Shafa went along with it. She didn't tell law enforcement, she didn't tell her family, didn't tell anybody.
All of that must have been confusing for her within this kind of, I love this guy, I want to protect this guy, but he's got me doing these things that totally supersede my own values.
Shafa says she had no idea Shirel would actually follow through with killing his best friend.
She didn't think any of that was going to happen.
Shafa claims that on July 11th, when Shirel told her they were going to pick up D'Angelo to hang out, she didn't think anything of it.
They were planning on going out and drinking and just having a good time.
Shafa says they drove around, and the guys were drinking heavily.
D'Angelo, he got hot, and he took off his shirt before he passed out in the back seat.
That's when the night took a dark turn.
Shirel told Shafa not to say a thing and tells her to drive north. Don't ask any questions, just do what I'm telling you.
Shafa's got to be terrified. But blinded by love, she was willing to do anything for this man to keep him happy.
They got on the freeway and wound up on a remote road in Vista.
She says Shirel then put on some gloves and removed the firearm from under the seat.
She knew that he was going to confront D'Angelo.
Shirel got out of the car and went around to the back, where D'Angelo was fast asleep.
Shirel then opened the door, and he hit D'Angelo directly in the top of the head.
Shafa says D'Angelo was dazed as Shirel dragged him out of the car at gunpoint.
D'Angelo kept asking, why are you doing this?
Shirel told D'Angelo because he had been disrespected by his best friend.
Shafa says she heard D'Angelo deny the accusations, but that only fueled Shirel's rage.
Shafa says that she heard D'Angelo say, I didn't do that. You're my brother. I love you. Please don't do this. And then she heard 3 gunshots.
After that, Shirel jumped into the car and ordered Shafa to drive.
Shafa, she had to be terrified. She loved this guy, but she just saw what he was capable of if she didn't obey his commands.
She jumped out to close the car doors, but broke her fingernail in a rush.
Shafa tells detectives she drove to her house, as Shirel instructed.
He then instructed her to go inside and get a pair of her brother's shorts and some tennis shoes, which she complied with and brought him out there.
Shafa says Shirel changed and put his bloody items into the trunk. Then, he told her she needed to help him cover up the crime.
Shirel told Shafa, now you're going to destroy all this crime scene evidence. Anything with blood on it, including the gun, is going to be your responsibility to destroy this stuff.
Shafa is in shock and awe. How am I here? But that sense of, he's my world, I need to please him and protect him. That was the battle in her.
As the sun rises, they arrive at Shirel's house at 6 a.m., where they are captured on his neighbor's surveillance.
The surveillance camera caught them making out right after this horrible crime.
Although the weight of the world was on her shoulder, Shafa was continuing to show loyalty to her man.
After Shafa finishes her confession, she and Shirel are both charged with first-degree murder.
Shafa didn't pull the trigger, but she was complicit in the actions that led to someone's death.
Shafa's family is in shock.
We felt they had the wrong person, that she was being accused of something that we knew she couldn't have been involved in.
With the trial looming, prosecutors believe their case is rock solid. But will the love-struck cheerleader stay true to her confession, or would she recant?
She had been manipulated by a very, very complex, borderline sociopath who can get people to act on his behalf.
July 2017. 18-year-old cheerleader Shafa Chevis has confessed to her part in D'Angelo Sharon's murder.
Her love for Shirel turned her life upside down.
Investigators charge both Shafa and her boyfriend, Shirel Wesley, with first-degree murder.
She could face life in prison for this. It was just so unbelievable that one errant decision could lead her to such a devastating possibility.
But there is a glimmer of hope for Shafa.
Shafa, she had very valuable information to offer, so I offered a plea bargain in exchange for her testifying against Shirel Wesley at trial.
She's thinking, do I protect myself or do I protect him?
In October 2018, more than a year after D'Angelo Sharon's murder, the trial against Shirel Wesley begins. Prosecutors argue Shirel killed his best friend and enlisted Shafa Chevis to help execute and cover up the crime.
He had this unfounded paranoia that D'Angelo was going to kill him, so he decided to kill D'Angelo first.
Shafa serves as the prosecution's star witness.
It took a lot of courage for Shafa to go into that courtroom, face this person that she had been in love with for so long, that had thrown her under the bus, and testify against him.
When Shafa takes the stand, she explains she felt like she had no choice but to follow her man's orders.
She testified about the physical and emotional abuse she suffered at the hands of her boyfriend. She talked about how she was really being forced into doing a lot of things just to support him.
So she was afraid of him at the time. She was afraid that he would harm her if she didn't go along with his wishes.
To combat Shafa's testimony, Shirel Wesley takes the stand in his own defense, and he is ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder.
He was sentenced to the maximum, 80 years to life.
As part of her plea deal, Shafa Chevis receives a sentence of 6 years in state prison for voluntary manslaughter.
So this case was a loss on so many different fronts. The victim, the Wesley family who lost a son to prison, and then you have Shafa, who is an American scholar, athlete, contributing member of society. Now she's spending the next 6 years in state prison.
For Shafa, her first crush became her worst nightmare, and has left a lasting mark on her life she'll never forget.
Her life has changed from light into darkness. But we have hope that this can even be redeemed in her life.
First crushes can be exhilarating, but secret love, that can elicit danger. especially if that love asks you to forego who you are and what you value.